Captain Maya Rice stands frozen on the command deck of Earth's orbital defense station. The alien transmission has ended, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Outside the reinforced viewport, the hegemony vessels hang like obsidian mountains against the stars, their hulls etched with luminescent symbols that seem to shift and change as she watches. "How many?" she finally asks, her voice barely audible. Her tactical officer swallows hard. Their conscription demand requires 10 million soldiers initially, with provisions for additional drafts every 6 months based on casualty rates. 10 million. The number echoes in her mind as she stares at the alien armada. Earth's combined military forces barely reach 15 million personnel. This would strip their defenses to dangerous levels, but the alternative is planetary bombardment. The hegemony demonstration of their weapons on a distant asteroid belt had vaporized objects that would have taken Earth's most powerful nukes multiple strikes to fracture. "They're giving us 72 hours to begin transport preparations," her communications officer adds, scrolling through the translated ultimatum. "The first deployments must commence within 1 week." Maya closes her eyes briefly, feeling the weight of helplessness. She has trained her entire career to defend Earth, and now she must watch as millions are taken to fight in a war beyond comprehension. The following days pass in a blur of global emergency broadcasts, protests, and hasty military reorganization. The United Earth government establishes draft protocols targeting soldiers with combat experience first, followed by reserves, and then civilian volunteers. Despite the fear, volunteer centers are overwhelmed as citizens step forward, rather than waiting for their draft numbers. Maya finds herself reassigned to coordination duty at the Jakarta spaceport, overseeing the loading of human troops onto massive hegemony transports. The alien vessels resemble giant segmented arthropods, their landing ramps extending like proboscises to swallow streams of humanity. "They're separating us," a young lieutenant reports, rushing to Maya's command post. "They're grouping soldiers by physical characteristics and separating established units." "Divide and conquer," Maya mutters. "Classic strategy. They don't want us maintaining Earth's command structure." She watches as families say goodbye through a cordoned perimeter, the hegemony overseers tolerating brief farewells, but hurrying the process with impatient gestures from their upper limbs. Their translator devices emit flat, emotionless instructions. "Proceed to designated loading area. Resistance will result in immediate penalty." On the 3rd day of loading, Maya notices something disturbing. The hegemony officers are taking particular interest in soldiers displaying quick reflexes or problem-solving abilities during the processing tests. These individuals are marked with distinctive bioluminescent tags and directed to separate transports. She discreetly pulls aside Staff Sergeant David Chen, whose unit is next for processing. "They're identifying our best and brightest," she whispers. "Tell your people to underperform on the reflex tests, just slightly, enough to avoid special attention." Chen nods grimly. "You think they're separating potential troublemakers, or identifying those with specific traits they find valuable? Either way, I want our people sticking together as much as possible. Pass the word through the ranks." As Chen moves away, Maya glances up at the alien vessel looming overhead. From this angle, its segmented hull resembles the shell of a massive predatory insect. The comparison sends a chill through her spine as she watches another 1,000 soldiers march up the ramp, disappearing into the unknown. Commander Eliza Chen crouches behind the shattered remains of a defensive barrier, the alien metal still warm beneath her gloved fingers. Around her, the surviving members of Earth's 87th Expeditionary Force take cover amidst the ruins of what was once a hegemony mining outpost on Proxima Centauri's largest moon. The air shimmers with heat from energy weapon discharges, and the distinctive howl of Void Collective dropships echoes across the cratered landscape. "Status report," she demands through her comm channel, wincing as a nearby explosion sends vibrations through her neural interface. 3rd Platoon is pinned down in the refinery sector. Lieutenant Kowalski responds, his voice strained. "Hegemony reinforcements are 20 minutes out, but the void forces have almost breached the inner perimeter. Chen checks her tactical display, a three-dimensional projection hovering before her eyes courtesy of the neural interface the hegemony had grudgingly provided to human officers. The display flickers with interference, a deliberate limitation, she suspects, to prevent humans from accessing the system's full capabilities. Everyone listen carefully, she broadcasts to all human channels. I need all squad leaders to initiate neural calibration sequence Delta 7. Confusion ripples through the comm channels. Delta 7 isn't a hegemony-approved protocol. It's something Chen's tech specialists developed in secret after discovering that human brains could process the neural interface data far more efficiently than the hegemony engineers had anticipated. Ma'am, that's untested in actual combat, Sergeant Rodriguez warns. So were we until 3 months ago, Chen replies grimly. Do it now. Throughout the battlefield, human soldiers discreetly adjust settings on their neural interfaces. The effect is immediate and startling. The tactical displays sharpen, colors intensify, and sensory input that the hegemony had deliberately filtered out suddenly floods their awareness. The humans can now perceive energy signatures, shield fluctuations, and subtle movement patterns that had previously been invisible to them. Chen feels the change like a rush of cold water. Her perception expands, and she instantly identifies a pattern in the Void Collective's attack formation, a vulnerability their hegemony commanders had missed entirely. All units converge on the following coordinates, she orders, transmitting the location directly through the enhanced neural link. Rodriguez, I need your heavy weapons team to target the central node of their communication array. Kowalski, prepare to flank from the eastern approach when their shields flicker. The human forces move with unprecedented coordination, their reactions now operating at speeds that alarm the hegemony observers monitoring from orbit. The Void Collective forces, accustomed to the predictable tactics dictated by hegemony commanders, find themselves outmaneuvered by the suddenly adaptive human units. A hegemony supervisor's voice cuts through Chen's command channel. Human commander, you are deviating from authorized tactical parameters. Return to standard operation immediately. Chen ignores the command as her troops execute a perfect pincer movement, catching a Void assault team in a devastating crossfire. The neural enhancement allows her soldiers to anticipate enemy movements with uncanny precision, their weapons finding vulnerabilities in Void armor that should have been imperceptible to human senses. Impossible, the hegemony supervisor whispers as the battle tide turns decisively. They're accessing restricted neural pathways. As the last Void fighters retreat, Chen stands amidst the battlefield wreckage, her enhanced perception registering the rapid exchange of encrypted communications between the hegemony observers. Through her boosted interface, she can sense their confusion, their disbelief, and their fear. Dr. Sanjay Kapoor's hands hover over the holographic interface, trembling slightly as he navigates deeper into the restricted archives. The hegemony database chamber hums with quiet energy around him, its crystalline data cores pulsing with soft blue light. His promotion to senior intelligence analyst had granted him access to this section, but what he's doing now would be considered treason by his alien superiors. 30 seconds until the security scan cycles, Lieutenant Park whispers from her position by the door. She's one of the few human officers Kapoor trusts implicitly, her skills as a systems analyst proving invaluable for creating this brief window of opportunity. Kapoor nods, fingers dancing across the interface with renewed urgency. The Void transmission he intercepted 3 days ago contained unusual linguistic patterns that had nagged at his academic mind. As a former professor of xenolinguistics, he recognized emotional markers that contradicted everything that hegemony had told them about their enemy. The holographic display flickers as he accesses a heavily encrypted file labeled Species Displacement Protocol. Historical implementation. The file opens to reveal thousands of planetary designations, dates, and statistics. Kapoor's eyes widen as he scans the information. My God, he breathes. These aren't military targets, they're inhabited worlds. The file contains meticulous records of hegemony resource extraction operations spanning thousands of years. Each entry follows a pattern: initial assessment, resource value calculation, indigenous species evaluation, and finally, displacement outcome. The clinical language doesn't disguise the horror of what's documented: systematic elimination or forced relocation of countless civilizations. 10 seconds, Park warns. Kapoor quickly transfers the data to a quantum storage device, disguised as a standard hegemony identification chip. As he closes the file, another catches his attention: a recent tactical briefing labeled Earth Evaluation, Resource Potential and Extraction Timeline. His blood runs cold as he opens it. The document contains detailed surveys of Earth's mineral wealth, biological diversity, and potential harvest value. More chillingly, it includes a preliminary extraction plan scheduled to begin after the Void Collective is neutralized, with humanity's role as combatants described as convenient pre-extraction utilization of indigenous biological assets. Time's up, Park hisses. Kapoor downloads the Earth file with seconds to spare, closing the interface just as the security scan washes through the chamber. They maintain perfect composure as they exit the archive, passing a hegemony supervisor who regards them with the dismissive glance the aliens typically reserve for human personnel. Back in his quarters, Kapoor reviews the stolen data with growing horror. The pattern is undeniable. The hegemony has been systematically consuming worlds for millennia, treating sentient species as temporary inconveniences in their resource acquisition. The Void Collective, far from being aggressors, appears to be composed primarily of refugee species who escaped initial hegemony harvesting operations. He opens his secure communication terminal, the one modified by Chen's technical team to bypass hegemony monitoring. His message is brief but will change everything. The wolf we hunt is actually a shepherd, and we are sheep. The encrypted message travels through the modified channels to Commander Chen, Admiral Nakamura, and 23 other trusted human officers stationed across different sectors of the front. Within hours, acknowledgments begin to return, along with a single question repeated by nearly everyone: what now? Kapoor looks at the Earth evaluation document again, noting the projected timeline. According to the hegemony's calculations, Earth has less than 5 years before extraction operations would begin. 5 years before humanity would join the growing list of species consumed by the insatiable appetite of their supposed allies. Lieutenant James Okafor feels sweat beading along his spine as his diplomatic shuttle approaches the outer defensive perimeter of the Void Collective fleet. Behind him, a small team of human specialists maintain tense silence, each carrying fragments of Kapoor's damning evidence on secure drives. The shuttle's engines hum softly, unarmed as promised in their broadcast. Void interceptors approaching fast, his pilot reports, voice remarkably steady despite the 12 hostile craft now surrounding them. They're scanning us for weapons and transmitting in standard hegemony battle code. Okafor takes a deep breath. Open a channel on all frequencies, including the ones Kapoor identified from the refugee transmissions. The communication officer nods, fingers dancing across the console. Channel open. Sir. Void Collective vessels, this is Lieutenant James Okafor of Earth. We come unarmed and seek asylum. He pauses, then adds the phrase Kapoor had extracted from intercepted Void communications. We seek shelter from the harvesters of worlds. The response is immediate. The Void vessels tighten their formation around the shuttle, weapons still trained on them, but not firing. A harsh, clicking voice responds through the translator. Hegemony deception tactics are well documented. Prove your intentions. Okafor exchanges a glance with his team. This is the moment they've prepared for, and the most dangerous part of their plan. Initiating airlock sequence, he announces, moving toward the shuttle's external hatch. His security officer steps forward in alarm. Sir, that's not. It's exactly what we discussed. Okafor interrupts. Stand down. The airlock cycles open, revealing the black void of space beyond the magnetic containment field. Okafor stands framed in the doorway, completely unarmed, the thin barrier of energy the only thing separating him from vacuum. It's an ancient gesture recognized across countless cultures, placing one's life entirely in another's hands. "I stand before you defenseless," he transmits. "We have discovered the truth about the hegemony and their plans for our world. We bring evidence of their atrocities and offer alliance." Long moments pass. The void ships maintain position, weapons still locked on the shuttle. Then, remarkably, one vessel powers down its weapon systems and extends a docking tube toward the human shuttle. The clicking voice returns, now carrying a note of cautious curiosity. "Your species takes bold risks, human. We will hear your evidence." Inside the Void command ship, Okafor and his team are escorted through corridors that seem designed for multiple species, some passages tall and wide, others narrow and low. Their escort, a being with iridescent scales and 4 upper limbs, leads them to a chamber where representatives of 7 different species await. "The Coalition Council," their escort announces. "Survivors all." Okafor steps forward, activating the holographic projector containing Kapoor's evidence. The room darkens as images of devastated worlds appear, alongside hegemony extraction schedules and resource assessments, including the recently discovered plans for Earth. "We've been fighting on the wrong side," Okafor explains. "The hegemony conscripted us to help destroy you, only to harvest our world once you were eliminated. But now we offer something that may turn the tide of this war." The central figure, a tall being with crystalline features, leans forward. "And what could your young species possibly offer that would change a conflict spanning millennia?" Okafor smiles thinly. "Information, technology, and most importantly," he activates a second projection showing Commander Chen's fleet, now safely hidden at the coordinates they've designated Sanctuary Base. The first large-scale defection in hegemony military history. Dr. Fatima El-Zahra stands surrounded by holographic projections in the cavernous asteroid hangar that serves as Sanctuary Base's main research facility. Streams of quantum equations float in the air around her, interspersed with void energy modulation patterns and human neural mapping data. Her team of scientists and engineers work frantically at stations throughout the chamber, a diverse collection of Earth's finest minds pulled from the defecting fleet. "The connection point exists," she insists, manipulating a complex energy signature with her hands. "The hegemony quantum fold technology and void energy manipulation should be compatible, but we're missing something fundamental." Engineer Raj Patel shakes his head, pointing to the simulation results on his display. "Every configuration we've tried results in catastrophic cascade failure. The systems reject each other like incompatible transplant organs." El-Zahra closes her eyes, filtering out the noise of the busy facility. She's been awake for nearly 40 hours straight, driven by the knowledge that Admiral Nakamura's strategy depends on this technological breakthrough. Without it, humanity remains just another refugee species fleeing hegemony expansion. Her eyes snap open. "The rejection is the key," she says, pulling up the neural interface data from Commander Chen's battle reports. "What if we need a translator between the two systems? Something that can communicate with both simultaneously." She quickly isolates the human neural patterns that allowed soldiers to interact with hegemony systems more effectively than expected. Beside these, she places the preliminary data from the void energy interfaces their allies had cautiously shared. "Look at the harmonic resonance patterns," she says, highlighting specific frequencies. Human brainwave patterns exist in a spectrum that overlaps with both technologies. We're natural interpreters. The realization sends a surge of excitement through the team. Within hours, they've constructed a prototype interface that uses a modified human neural pattern as a mediating framework between the incompatible systems. The first tests are promising but unstable. "We need a living neural template," El-Zahra concludes reluctantly, "a human mind to serve as the pattern for the integration matrix." Volunteers step forward immediately. The first 3 attempts result in headaches and minor neural feedback. The fourth volunteer, a young communications specialist named Marcus Wong, shows remarkable compatibility. His neural patterns, when mapped and incorporated into the integration matrix, create the stable foundation they need. 3 days later, Al-Zahra activates the first prototype shield emitter in a secured testing chamber. The device hums quietly, then projects a field of shimmering blue-violet energy that easily absorbs the test weapon's energy. Unlike conventional shields that eventually overload, this hybrid technology actually grows stronger as it absorbs more energy, converting and storing it for later use. Admiral Nakamura witnesses the successful test, his normally stoic expression giving way to rare amazement as the shield withstands concentrated fire that would have penetrated hegemony defenses in seconds. "How soon until we can implement this on a larger scale?" he asks. "We've already begun adapting the technology for ship-based systems," Al-Zahra responds, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten in the triumph of success. "The first prototypes will be ready for installation within 2 weeks, with full fleet integration possible within 2 months." Nakamura nods, studying the shield's distinctive blue-violet glow. "And the ship redesigns." Al-Zahra pulls up the schematics developed by her engineering team. Vessels unlike anything seen in the galaxy before. Unlike the rigid, specialized designs favored by both the Hegemony and Void Collective, these ships incorporate modular components that can reconfigure during battle, adapting to specific threats in real time. "Humanity has always excelled at adaptation, Admiral," she says. "These ships embody that principle at every level." Lieutenant Rosa Martinez grips the controls of her modified interceptor as Earth's atmosphere burns around her hull. The Hegemony flagship looms in her viewport, a massive obsidian structure bristling with weapon arrays and surrounded by defensive escort vessels. Its central cannon, the planet Cracker, glows with building energy as it prepares to target Washington, D.C. below. "All systems at maximum," her onboard computer reports. "Phase bomb deployment system online. Shield integrity at 73% and falling." Martinez's interceptor shudders as enemy point defense systems track her approach. She's already lost 2 wingmates on this desperate mission, their vessels reduced to expanding clouds of superheated particles. The remaining 3 interceptors in her squad maintain formation despite the punishing barrage. "Remember the approach vector," she transmits to her squad. The flagship's primary shield harmonics fluctuate at 4.3-second intervals. "We need to time our approach to those gaps." On her tactical display, Admiral Nakamura's defensive fleet engages the Hegemony Armada in Earth orbit. The human vessels, retrofitted with Al-Zahra's hybrid shields, hold the line against overwhelming numbers. The distinctive blue-violet energy fields absorb incoming fire, growing stronger with each hit in direct contradiction to conventional Hegemony shield physics. 30 seconds to optimal insertion point, her navigator announces. Martinez opens a channel to Earth Defense Command. "This is Raptor Lead. We are commencing final approach to target." Admiral Nakamura's voice comes through, unusually personal for the normally stoic commander. "Godspeed, Lieutenant. The entire planet is counting on you." As if emphasizing his words, the Hegemony flagship's lower hull plates begin to separate, revealing the pulsing core of the planet Cracker weapon. Energy readings spike dramatically on Martinez's sensors. "They're powering up for full discharge," she warns her squad. "We need to move now." Her interceptor dives toward the flagship, engines straining beyond safety parameters. The massive vessel's defensive grid locks onto her ship, energy beams converging from multiple turrets. Her shields flare brilliantly as they absorb the initial assault, but warning lights cascade across her console. Shield integrity at 41%, 36, 29. The flagship's primary shield barrier looms ahead, a nearly invisible distortion in space that would vaporize her ship on contact. Martinez watches her timing display, tracking the fluctuations that Dr. Kapoor's intelligence team had identified from analyzed battle footage. "On my mark," she tells her remaining squad. 3, 2, 1, now. She punches her engines to maximum thrust, diving through the momentary weakness in the flagship's shields. Two of her squad make it through the gap before it closes, the third interceptor disintegrating against the re-established barrier in a flash of light. Inside the flagship's defensive perimeter, Martinez's ship takes immediate and devastating fire from internal defense systems. Her shield fails completely, and critical damage reports flood her displays. Targeting systems failing, her weapons officer reports tensely, "We need to get closer, manual deployment only." Martinez grits her teeth and pushes her wounded ship toward the flagship's central power conduits, now visible as pulsing arteries of energy running along the vessel's spine. Her interceptor's port engine explodes, sending the craft into a spinning dive that she somehow transforms into a controlled approach vector. Weapons range achieved, her tactical officer announces as they scrape along the flagship's hull, leaving a trail of their own debris. "Deploy all charges," Martinez orders, watching as the specialized phase bombs attach to the massive power conduits. Each device contains elements of the hybrid technology, designed to disrupt the flagship's energy distribution systems at a quantum level. As her crippled ship careens away from the target, Martinez transmits one final message: Raptor lead to Earth defense. Packages delivered. Trigger sequence initiated. Maya Okafor stands at the center of Concordia's Grand Chamber, surrounded by representatives of 47 distinct species. The circular room hums with translation devices and environmental adjusters that accommodate the diverse biological requirements of the delegates. 3 months of negotiations have produced moments of progress interspersed with bitter setbacks and near-catastrophic diplomatic incidents. Today feels different. The chamber's tension has shifted from hostile to expectant following yesterday's assassination attempt and Colonel Nkosi's sacrifice. The Void Prime speaker, a luminescent being composed of interlocking crystalline structures, still bears marks where Nkosi intercepted the energy blast meant for them. The human delegate wishes to address the assembly, announces the neutral mediator, a member of an ancient species that had withdrawn from galactic politics millennia ago. Okafor takes a steadying breath. Her family's colony on New Jakarta was among the first targeted in the hegemony's assault on Earth's settlements. Of the 2 million colonists, barely 6,000 survived. She still carries that grief, but today it must serve a purpose larger than vengeance. Distinguished representatives, she begins, her voice carrying through the chamber's perfect acoustics. Yesterday, we witnessed both the worst and best of what sentient beings are capable of. An act of hatred, followed by an act of sacrifice. She gestures to the empty seat in the human delegation where Colonel Nkosi should be sitting. Thomas Nkosi was not a diplomat. He was a soldier who fought against the Void Collective for years before learning the truth of this conflict. Yet when the moment came, he gave his life to protect a being he once considered an enemy. The chamber remains silent, even the typically dismissive hegemony representatives watching with reluctant attention. This war has consumed our galaxy for generations, Okafor continues. It has defined your civilizations longer than mine has existed. The hatred between your peoples has become fundamental to your identities, so much so that many believe peace is impossible. She activates the holographic display at the chamber center. Images appear. Worlds reduced to barren rock by hegemony harvesting, refugee flotillas destroyed by void defensive measures, the devastation of Earth's cities during the recent battle. We have all suffered, she acknowledges. The hegemony's drive for resources has destroyed countless homes. The Void Collective's desperate defensive measures have claimed innocent lives. And my people, newcomers to this ancient conflict, have lost millions in a war we never asked to join. The images shift to show something unexpected. The flourishing ecology of a restored world where void refugees have successfully rehabilitated a former hegemony extraction site. But suffering is not the only possible outcome, Okafor says, her voice gaining strength. Across this galaxy, even amid this devastating conflict, there are examples of restoration and renewal. More images appear, showing technological collaboration between human scientists and representatives from both factions, successful environmental reclamation projects, and trading partnerships that have survived despite the war. The Galactic Covenant I propose today isn't merely a cessation of hostilities, she explains, as the text of the document materializes before each delegate. It's a fundamental reimagining of how we relate to one another and to the worlds we inhabit. The Covenant's key provisions highlight ecological sustainability, technological exchange limitations, protected status for developing civilizations, and a revolutionary resource-sharing framework that would transform the extractive economy that drove the hegemony's expansion. We stand at a crossroads, Okafor concludes, looking around the chamber at faces and sensory apparatuses so different from her own. We can continue this cycle of destruction until nothing remains worth fighting for, or we can choose a different path, one that honors Colonel Nkosi's sacrifice and the sacrifices made by all our peoples. Admiral Nakamura leans on his cane as he watches the spectacular procession of vessels approaching Concordia Station. The viewport stretches before him, a wall of transparent material developed through collaboration between void engineers and human material scientists. It offers perfect clarity while withstanding forces that would shatter conventional materials, much like the Covenant itself, he muses. Quite a view, isn't it? Says a voice beside him. He turns to find Serena Martinez, daughter of the legendary pilot whose sacrifice had turned the tide of the Earth battle. Now a diplomat in her own right, she represents humanity's second generation of galactic citizens, those who have grown up in a post-Covenant galaxy. I was just thinking about your mother, Nakamura admits. She would hardly recognize the galaxy today. Serena nods, her expression thoughtful. She used to tell me stories about the war, you know. Before I was old enough to read the history texts, she never spoke about her own role. I had to learn about that from others. Below them, the docking bays accommodate vessels of wildly different designs. A hegemony diplomatic ship, sleek and geometric, settles into a berth adjacent to a void collective transport whose organic curves and bioluminescent hull markings stand in stark contrast. The crews disembark and greet each other without weapons or suspicion, a sight unimaginable 20 years earlier. The educational exchange program has doubled its enrollment this year, Serena comments. We now have over 30,000 students from former hegemony worlds studying on Earth, and nearly as many human students on their planets. Nakamura smiles faintly. Knowledge flows more freely than resources ever did. Perhaps that's the true currency of civilization. They move toward the central observation lounge where representatives gather before the formal anniversary ceremony. The chamber buzzes with dozens of languages, translation devices humming discreetly. Nakamura observes a group of children from various species playing with a zero-gravity puzzle, their differences in biology and background presenting no barrier to their collaboration. The terraforming project on Proxima Centauri IV has passed its final evaluation. Serena informs him, knowing the Admiral's interest in restoration initiatives. It's the 17th world successfully rehabilitated using the combined techniques. Nakamura nods appreciatively. And to think those same technologies nearly destroyed us all. A respectful hush falls over the gathering as the Covenant custodians enter, 3 representatives chosen from each faction of the former conflict, plus 3 from neutral species. The human representative, Dr. Fatima Al-Zahra, catches Nakamura's eye and offers a slight bow of acknowledgement. Her scientific breakthroughs had evolved from weapons of war to tools of planetary healing, embodying humanity's journey. Admiral, comes a clicking voice to his right. He turns to face the Void Collective's prime speaker, the very being Colonel Nkosi had died protecting 2 decades earlier. Your presence honors us. The honor is mutual, Nakamura responds with practiced ease. Your leadership was instrumental in those early days. The crystalline being emits patterns of light that the translator interprets as gentle amusement. We all took risks, Admiral, but perhaps your species took the greatest risk of all, believing peace was possible when all evidence suggested otherwise. As the formal ceremony begins, Nakamura watches the vast holographic display showing real-time images from across the galaxy. Restored worlds teeming with life, joint scientific outposts exploring the universe's mysteries, cultural centers where art and knowledge from dozens of civilizations intermingle freely.